Hi, I'm Ali. I'm one of the physios from treatmyachilles.com. Today I wanted to talk a little bit more about heel raises, or those heel cups that you can put in your shoe as part of maybe using orthotics to help with Achilles pain. We at treatmyachilles.com are a specialist online service offering physiotherapy assessment and rehabilitation programs to people suffering with Achilles pain or problems. If you'd like to find out a little bit more about us or book your appointment, then the information is underneath this video on YouTube. So we're talking about heel raises. This moves on from some of the videos you may have already seen on our channel about orthotics or about wearing boots. So these heel cups or heel raises are quite commonly given to people with an Achilles tendon pain. They're really quite useful for one type of Achilles pain, and they're not so useful for others. So it's important to have a think about where you get your pains or symptoms. If you have an Achilles tendonitis or a tendinopathy, it's quite common to be in two locations. Either it's one, an insertional Achilles tendinopathy, which tends to be found at the lower part of your heel. So if I show you, your Achilles tendon runs down the back of your leg and an insertion is where it attaches into the heel. The second option is a mid portion, which tends to be more in this middle section here. If you have an insertional Achilles tendinopathy, then using some of these heel raises, particularly at the beginning when it's quite uncomfortable to walk or put your foot flat onto the floor, then that can help offload your Achilles tendon. So what I mean by that, if you have a wedge underneath your heel, it's putting your heel higher than your toes. So in effect, it's making that Achilles tendon shorter. If it's making it shorter, it's not putting it so much on stretch. And if it's not stretching as much, you get less of what I'm going to call a compressive force. So a compressive force is typically something that irritates an insertional Achilles tendinopathy. So you have two different types of forces that go through your Achilles tendon. One, I'm using it and contracting it and moving. And two, a compressive force when you stretch it. So your Achilles tendon comes down, inserts into that bit on that bone we talked about, and when you do a stretching movement, so where your foot is going into that angle, so if your foot is here and your calf is going forwards, so for example, a typical Achilles stretch or calf stretch would be going into this sort of position. What you're doing there is pushing that Achilles tendon closer to the ankle bone where it's attaching. So if it's a bit irritated here, it can act like it's pressing on a bruise. Therefore, if you raise up the angle, so therefore your heel is higher than your toes, what you are then doing is stopping that stretch, stopping that compressive force, or reducing it. So therefore, it's really useful from a pain relieving perspective. If we look at more of a mid-portion Achilles tendinopathy, it can also help if it's really, really sensitive right at the beginning of treatment again, just to offload it and give it some help. But this is unusual and not something that we would tend to do in the first instance. Now, there has been a recent research paper which has been quite interesting, telling us that these heel raises are superior, so meaning better than, eccentric calf exercises. So they're the typical calf raises. If you Google what exercises shall I do for my Achilles tendon, it tends to show people dropping down off a step and stretching that Achilles. So again, creating that compressive force going through that back of that heel. They took two different groups. One, they just put heel raises in, and the other group did the eccentric protocol that you may have seen if you Google it from a researcher called Alison. So at the end of a number of weeks, they looked to see which was better. And actually, the symptom response was better in the group that had the heel raises compared to the eccentric exercises. So they suggested it was superior, it was better to do this. Now, my argument is to think about that a little bit more. If they have reduced the compressive force because they have put a heel raise underneath, it's going to be removing that pressure at the back. So it's like a bruise that's not being pressed on anymore. So that symptom has calmed down. If you are doing an eccentric stretch where you are coming off a step, you are putting more of a compressive force through. So if compression is something that hurts your Achilles tendon, and that's something that would need to be assessed by a professional to find out if that is the case, then doing those eccentric calf raises could be something that actually aggravates your pain. If we were to then not do any eccentric exercises and not do any strength exercises, and we've settled this pain down because we're not pressing on the bruise anymore, and now we think, brilliant, I'm going to go off and do my sports or walking or hiking or activities that I would typically do, have we changed the reason why your Achilles tendinopathy has started in the first place? Probably not. Have we made your Achilles more robust, or the calves that come down and attach into the Achilles more robust to cope with these demands that you're asking it to do, all of the activities? Probably not. Well, definitely not, because we've not done any strength work. So my suggestion is that this would be unlikely to help resolve this Achilles tendinopathy in the future. It may help in the short term for pain management, but once you get back into your activity again, the odds are your pain's going to come back. So it is important to add in strength exercises, and these will be the correct ones depending on your symptoms, depending on how strong you are already, and depending on the tests that we do when we examine you. And we would pick the correct strength exercises, and if there's a compression element to your pain, then we wouldn't pick those off a step type movements. We may modify or change that. This doesn't mean that there isn't a place for heel raises and heel cups to go in your shoe, and that's something again that we would consider, but it's important that we do a bit of both. I hope that is clear, and if you have any comments, please put them in the bottom of this video, and like I said, have a look on our website for any more information. Thanks very much. Bye.